Welcome back, Eytan. Good to see you again.
Good evening. Welcome in. NBA Live Before Lock. I'm sure we're going to talk about a bunch of other things, unprepared, off the deep end, rabbit holes galore here. But we do have a basketball game to talk about. I know that myself and Eric Lindquist are on opposite ends of this playoff that's going on. I might have purposely placed a wager pre-show just for the entertainment value of how this thing plays out. And look, there's Eric, and there is the Eric Lindquist look that you come to know and expect on every program he's on. What's up, brother?
Come on now. Good to see you. Congratulations. All the nice stuff. Also, F you. What are you doing? You're going against me right away? Like we're 5 minutes into hanging out. Everything's nice. Everything's great. And I drop in how Harris English was minus 150 and plus 140. I think one of the best values you can get once in a while when it pops up on a sports book is in some of these playoffs because it's a one hole sample size. You're looking at one professional golf hole. Like it's for Harris English to be minus 150 and then for Hickok to be plus 140. Sorry to start off with golf here, but it's just a talking point where like, how can I possibly, when they're both, if they're going to be of equal weight, they shot the exact same thing on the exact same golf course, 472 holes. And now you're going to give me plus 140 on a dude. So I bet that for everything that I possibly could on my book. Thought that it would be fantastic. And now you've seen the odds drop to what you said it was minus 118 English here at this point in time. So I feel good about the work that I've done with that. And regardless of what happens, it was one of the better bets you can get. You're basically taking a coin flip and you're getting plus 40 on top of it.
Amazing. And nobody could fault you for the value when you jumped in. And look, all I did was just apply your reasoning and say, I'm going to jump in. Eric jumps in on the plus money before it dips. Clearly, I mean, you recognize the value. But look, on the flip side, I'm just looking at it like I waited and waited and waited, and English's number dropped. It was at 110. I was trying to get you at 110, but I had to settle for 118. Look, we'll see. These guys have been locked in. They're now on their sixth playoff hole. So I'm sure we're not the only ones with eyes on this, right?
Yeah, it's outrageous what they're doing. I think it's actually maybe seventh here at this point in time.
Is that right? Okay. Nice.
I think I started losing track. I wanted to focus on some NBA for the people and do a little bit of that. No, I'm saying that was kind of, I was trying to space out a little bit during it. Second playoff hole, he had the big lip out. But again, it doesn't matter what sport it is. It doesn't matter where it is. We're looking for value every single day at Awesemo. We're in the sports betting channel, checking out what you can do, where you can do it. Definitely use Odd Shop or shop your lines and listen to Eytan over there because he's definitely becoming like a little sports betting guru himself, except when he pulls the trigger on minus 118 Harris English.
We'll see how that plays out. And look, to be fair, my record isn't public here on the channel, so I could just spin yarn left and right, making it sound like I've got these beautiful gems mining deep down underground, and it doesn't hit. So I just keep moving and act like it did. But I appreciate it by all means. And you're right. We do have a ton of options and ways in which people can get more informed or just take advantage of what we have here on site from both DFS and a sports betting standpoint. It's a great point, though, you make about value. Anytime there is value, we see it whenever we hit an overtime or some sort of extended period of play. It's a little more difficult with team play, but in something like this, which is so rare, a golf playoff, I can't fault you. All right. And part of me is rooting. I didn't even place a full unit. It was a half a unit, Eric. All right.
Okay.
So
okay.
I could take the loss and watch you happy because I'm sure you weren't happy about your Clippers. So
no. And should we just start with my officiating rant right off the bat here? It's so ironic, too, because the Clippers caused me so much pain and suffering with late scratches throughout the entire year. And you got to see me tilt in spectacular fashion multiple times on account of one Tyronn Lue and his ridiculousness talking to the media. But man, the officiating at the end of that game was just such garbage. Game 4 was one of the worst basketball games. I mean, I was watching it on a phone. I was out for a birthday party, and fortunately, a number of the people that I was out and about with were just fine tuning in with me and watching it and going back and forth. But that officiating down the end, how you do not review that? We have these 2-hour-long last 2 minutes of the game all the time. And you're not going to, one of the most important calls of the entire season, you just gloss over. It was so egregious. It was so pathetic. And the NBA be better.
Look, you're not going to get any argument from me. I feel like there is a vendetta against Philadelphia for purposely tanking for years and making a mockery of the draft system. And maybe subtly it's just me, but and I put this out on Twitter following that game. So I took a pretty big hit on that loss as well in game, thinking the Clippers had a really good shot of winning that, which they did. 0 for 12 in the fourth quarter for shots that would either tie or go ahead. So clearly there were plenty of options there to do that. But with that said, you can't say any. I even put a tweet out saying that about how every single game, it feels like the officiating is so bad in the NBA that it just welcomes the conspiracy theories. And I can't even shoot down conspiracy theories anymore because every night, Eric, we have a new example of, oh, shit, are you kidding me? They're that bad, and then they won't even review it.
They didn't review a clear tip out of bounds. Like, it was sometimes it just the officials have such egos. It has to be a little bit of that where they just are like, I made the right call. This is not worthy of whatever. It was so obvious. And it's like, it's not that obvious, which is why we have instant replay in the first place. It's like, what are we freaking doing out here? It's such a joke. And it's so much money that's swinging on these kind of decisions. And I'm fortunate because I when it was plus 950, I jumped on the Suns against the Lakers in the middle of that series when Anthony Davis went down for the Suns to get to the Western Conference or to get to the NBA Finals. And I feel good about that bet. And I feel like that was the right way of doing it. It allowed me to hedge a little bit of this Clippers exposure. But my God, it was an extremely, extremely costly game yesterday. Definitely it tainted the evening for sure.
You know, I think we might be onto something. And I see Emac on the chat. Angry Eric is the best Eric. Well, other than Puppet Lindquist.
Shut up, Emac.
Well, but you know what, though? He's right.
I'm kidding. I love you, Emac.
And here's the thing. I think this is what we need to start doing, all right? Now, look, I admit that with the new kid here, I was a little tight ahead of time for the pre-show get-together, so I didn't have time to fire you up 15 minutes before show. But I think this is what should happen now, is like we just get you going. It's almost like a fighter, right? Or like that Draymond Green, Kevin Durant GIF, whatever you call it, where he's just like, yeah. We got to do that to you before every show. So you come fired out, angry, pissed off, and mad.
Yeah, it's like I'm listening to Foo Fighters or Linkin Park as a 15-year-old in my basement, just getting upset and angry.
Yes, no, I love it.
No, it's fine. Or just for me, it was always like G Unit. That was my favorite growing up. I miss those days. Those were great days. It's hard to be too cool when you grew up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Hey. Not exactly the coolest place to grow up. I enjoyed it very much, but yeah, at this point in time, it's like, what am I going to do? I'm just an upset person when it comes to stupid stuff like stupid officiating and stupid people who do stupid things. Come at me, YouTube chat. Let's go.
There you go. See, I love it. I love it. You got it right in here. Right now, say fired up, already calling the
G-Unit.
Butthole Jenkins is fired up, going to start firing back at you, Lindquist. It's on tonight. See, now we're ready to go. It only took
Come
a
at me,
couple of
butthole. Let's go. Anyway, but that just needed to get off my chest right away, right off the bat, because, something egregious will probably happen today, like the Hawks will lose by 60 this time.
No, you're right. There is going to be again, every single night we have the opportunity. Now, unfortunately, you can't pre-bet that. You can't really factor that in. Although there is one angle where I think we look at foul trouble, and just looking at the nature of kind of how these series have gone. We start tonight, of course, with our game, Milwaukee and Atlanta, but foul trouble and really guys getting in early foul trouble, especially big names. And we see that at times where if it's the road team, and again, enter all the conspiracies you want out there because the NBA is allowing you to with how poorly they're officiating these games. But, that would be, I think, the only thing that slows down a guy like Giannis tonight, whereas we've seen Trae Young struggle at times. We've seen the other star on the floor, some element of, even if it's a strategy or just approaching, slowing down Trae Young, we've seen that. So that's really the only thing that you could really factor in, as poor and as bad as the officiating is. But again, I don't think it's going to be a deterrent for playing Giannis per se at captain starting off there.
No, we're not. I'm not factoring in officiating ever. It's more of just a talking point. The thing as a whole sucks. It's not good right now. Be better. That's really kind of all the lessons of that. But Yeah, Giannis is definitely not going to be somebody that you're getting off of for whatever reason here or there, or that, now the NBA wants the Hawks to have a win here. I'm pretty sure the NBA would prefer to have the guy who's won 2 MVPs end up in the NBA finals and actually have it be competitive, because the Hawks and Suns doesn't. I've been saying this about the Hawks every series, so what do I know? But they just continue to figure out a way to do it. But this is, Tyler brings up a good point in our chat as you were going back and forth. All they really care about, the NBA wants more games. That's more coverage. That's more opportunity for them to show their product, to get more commercials, to get more coverage. That's more viewers. It makes all the sense in the world that that's the goal for just about every single one of these series. And, if you want to look at that game one, I think that was pretty self-inflicted. I think Coach Bud had some issues there. Brook Lopez showed a propensity to guard the pick and roll in game 2. It's a very important change to his outlook for this game as well. But there were a lot of issues from game 1. The Hawks snuck one. I'm hoping that they don't sneak this one, because I'm pretty sure 4.5 is too low of a number on that side. And I'm happy to be going to the Milwaukee Bucks here.
I am as well. And we'll get to just how much money there is so far. More tickets are coming in. The majority of the public is on our side from both the Bucks laying the points and the money line, which has dropped a little bit since open. But just going back to the point about the game and approaching it tonight, I agree with you. I agree with Tyler, who's making good points, by the way, in both chats, our chat and the stream chat. Simultaneous action right there. But I think what happens is people get caught up, and this is where I think some people will get caught up tonight, which is, I agree, Tyler and Eric and Shander and others, that the NBA does like to see 6-7 game series. That doesn't mean that the Hawks win tonight. That doesn't mean that the NBA is going to ensure that this thing lasts. We could easily see a series that should be over in 4 go 5, or should be over in 5 now with the Hawks getting that win, go 6, go an extra game. It doesn't mean everything stretches. So that's where I think people may be a little, or should be a little cautious tonight with the game flow. And I'm curious to kind of see how you approach it with the game and your strategy, because I'm with you. I think the Bucks have figured out how to beat Atlanta. They are going to walk in and win on the road, yet there are going to be a lot of people that think, oh, no. Atlanta won 1 game. They're back at home. They're able to win. They're able to beat Milwaukee. This thing should go 6 or 7. I don't really see it that way.
I don't either. I also think that looking at ownership for the most part, I think Trae Young being the second highest owned player right behind Giannis makes a lot of sense. And then it becomes Clint Capella. I think that there's like a reliability that exists with him, like a false sense of reliability in a center there because of the rebound production he can spike. I want to let it be known that he only has 1 double-double in their last 5 games, which is pretty remarkable for a guy who was routinely doing that on the daily. Speaks a little bit to John Collins and the ability he has, but he's not exactly cheap at this point. A lot of the analysis for me right now is just throwing a lot of what happened in game 2 outside of 1 or 2 parts out the window. Like, I'm throwing game 2 out the window. If you guys want to be playing your Cam Reddish and your Chris Dunn, like, we've proven now that if there's a blowout and you want to play $5, Chris Dunn and Cam Reddish make acceptable pieces to slot in there as the one hawk that are going to play all of the blowout run if they're down 40. The problem that I have with this is it's 1-1. They're coming back here. I think the game is, I'm not saying remotely competitive, but even if they're down 15, I don't see Trae Young coming off the floor here. And that's a pretty large outcome. So I think we got to be a little bit tempered on what we're looking to do with some of our builds here, but it's pretty straightforward. I think if you don't like inheriting a bunch of risk, this is not the showdown slate for you, because if you want to try to not just, I'm not saying solo ship, but if you're trying to, just maybe dupe with 15, 20 people, it's going to be very difficult. Some of the decisions that you're left with, you are definitely making some negative EV decisions that turn out EV just because nobody else is doing it.
Yeah, you talk about ownership for sure. Trae Young coming in 67.7, 68. We'll update that as we get closer to lock. One of the great tools we have here on Awesemo.com. Awesemo Plus, just $29.95 a week. As you know, NBA season not going to be along for a while now, so you want to make sure you can take advantage of everything, every single sport that we have, right through golf, as I'm sure Eric is doing. And look, if there was ever a reason, we pimped out my new child on the last show to get over 400 likes.
What?
Yeah, I have no shame here in this household. I was actually going to bring the kid down and show him for 500 likes, but we didn't get to that point yet.
Shave your child's eyebrow when they have eyebrows, and then we can talk, okay?
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Jokes, don't do that. Absolutely don't do that. You should stay married. These are good things.
Yeah, so far, so good. I mean, as of now, 5 days into the kid's existence, still married, still living together, like still okay. I'll tell you in a week how it's going, but absolutely. See, now I lost my train of thought. I was going to build this whole thing up to if we can get 400 likes for my kid last night, then we sure as hell can get more of that for Eric filling in the blank. And I forgot what it is, so I'll have to come back. That's why we just make sure that you're always liking, subscribing, sharing, notification bell, covered with everything. But it'll come back to me. I promise. It'll come back to me. Now, the super chat wide open, premium Slack is buzzing as well. Did Harris English blow it?
I don't know. I just turned it off because otherwise I'm going to get so distracted by it.
That's what it was. See,
I get so focused. Yeah, I tried to find out quick while you were talking there for a second, and the thing that it's not refreshing, so I just X'd out of it, and I will find out afterwards. Somebody will spoil it for me in the chat, or somebody will just say both things happened, and I won't know until it's over. So
no, that's fine. And that's what I was going to build up, which is, look, if you can have one eye, your left eye on a screen watching golf, and your right eye on the chat and watching what we're doing here without it looking like your eyes have split, then that deserves a like. That's all I'm saying. All right.
So I had the Dodger game on a second ago, but I had to cancel it out. See, these are the issues when you have lineups in MLB, PGA, everything's a sweat except for my golf lineups are just garbage because no Harris English was a bad week for me.
Fair enough. I did okay. I tailed a couple of people on our site in golf, so I did okay. I can't claim knowledge for anything. I am curious, though. Just let's look at Giannis really quick. I mean, he comes in probable, the knee or whatever, a calf, tightness, nonsense. That's not anything that's going to impact him unless they're up. Now, this is something to think about. The only reason why I bring the injury up, because, again, I don't see any scenario at all in which we're talking tomorrow on Twitter, in real life, or anywhere, the Atlanta Hawks won by 10, 12, 14 points. I just don't see that big of a victory for Atlanta. What I can easily see is Milwaukee up by 12, 14, 18 points. And I do wonder, clearly the calf tightness was not enough to limit Giannis from playing and even on the floor. But when we start to get to blowout mode, if maybe the threshold for when Giannis sits is a little sooner because he's dealing with this calf tightness as opposed to normally where he could be out there a little longer.
I don't really see it here in this spot. I think we've got if you're trying to build a narrative for a reason to not have Giannis in your lineup and you want to point to that can be a path, because if it ends up being a deal sweep, but he's played through all of this, we're going to see him continue to play through it. It's not like Bogdanovich where we've seen like a market drop off for him, but we will also get to him. He's a guy that I definitely like more than I think the public does here at this point in time. Bogdanovich is who I'm speaking about, and we'll get to some of the reasons there. He might have actually looked better than I was expecting. I mean, I've been completely off of Bogdanovich since that injury, since it really popped up. I mean, it's basically been this entire series for sure, coming from last series into this series. But I definitely feel like he's somebody to be a little bit higher on. But yeah, Giannis isn't a guy that I'm possibly going to get off of. I'm going to have 100% Giannis on both sites today. I see no path where I want to be fading a guy who, it's not just that he puts up these big fantasy outputs. It's that the pricing hasn't changed to really constrict you from building with him. I don't see it. We're seeing 65% in the utility spot, and in the captain spot, 31.7%. That means about 97% of lineups. Give me the 3% rake over on DK. And on FanDuel, the pricing, just kind of the way that it works out, Giannis should be more than $500 more than Trae Young, because the number of outcomes, like the range of outcomes with the way that Giannis plays, like Trae Young has to go 17 for 34 like he did in game one. And he still, he beat him on DraftKings, but he did not beat Giannis on FanDuel in that spot. So I feel like on FanDuel, especially where you actually have some steal and block upside, there really goes along with him. I mean, Trae Young can certainly get a couple steals here and there. He had a couple 3-steal games in that Philly series. Hasn't had a block since like 1994, so not really looking towards that. But I think Giannis is definitely a guy on FanDuel. Just playing him in your MVP or just having 100% exposure to him, be it at the MVP or the star, I just don't see any way around that being the proper way to be building today.
Yeah, just crunching on FanDuel, it's exactly that. He's 100% on the MVP slot. And again, we know from an ownership standpoint, everybody is going to be rolling that way. So if you are looking at anybody else that would make sense in the MVP slot, I'm going to take your logic and push it a little bit and say that it's not Trae Young. It's not the obvious choice in just who the second best player is on the floor. It's somebody on Milwaukee who's picking up that slack. And immediately you have to go to Jrue Holiday, right? Because you're really putting a lot on Khris Middleton kind of evening out. And I don't even know if evening out is enough to be the top performer, but Jrue Holiday at the MVP, Giannis at the star, that may be the only pivot tonight outside of Giannis at the MVP, Eric.
I could see if the ownership was like 1% on Clint Capella, you could talk me into him having a crazy ceiling game, or just have the game be very low scoring where Giannis puts up 51 and Capella goes for 54 or 55, something along those lines. I could see a really slugfest. I mean, that's kind of what we saw with Eytan yesterday, right? Yeah. I know it's completely different look of a game, but if we're going to predict a game script and we're going to see this being a low scoring affair, a little bit more of a slugfest, if neither team really goes out and shoots, I mean, Milwaukee blew the doors off of it in game 2. Both teams shot it pretty darn well. Specifically, Trae Young going 50% from the field is a pretty large outcome when you're taking 34 shots and you're getting Jrue Holiday individual defense. That just tells you that he was getting more open shots than what he should have been getting in that spot, or just was absolutely unconscious. But I'm with you. Trae Young 16K on FanDuel feels like he's just going to be a product of the pricing. Yep. I can't get myself to pull the trigger on it. And maybe if it weren't something where I knew he was going to be unowned, he's going to get ownership. So I don't even have to worry about that. He's going to be 35, 40% owned throughout the entire lineups there. I know that more people are going to play Giannis. That's not the question. But I think for me, just playing 0% Trae Young in 40 lineups that I'm playing over there tonight feels like something where I can get some leverage. If I feel like the Bucks are going to go in and blow the doors off of it, just looking at the Giannis Trae Young lineups don't intrigue me nearly as much as being able to go Giannis Jrue Middleton, Giannis Middleton Collins, Giannis Middleton Capella. I think I can elevate the floor of my lineup. And also if I go Giannis Trae, which is going to be a very popular thing to do, you end up with 91.67 per player. You're forced into a lot of the same particular builds where you're probably clicking on Bobby Portis and Pat Connaughton, or maybe if you want to be playing PJ Tucker instead of him, and then you've got 11K and you're rounding out with, a Brook Lopez or a Kevin Huerter. I'm just kind of avoiding that script. I think that just kind of limiting my exposure to the Giannis MVP and then taking my individual shots on a couple Jrue Holiday or Middletons in the MVP along with Giannis and the star just feels so much more. And I know that we're talking about the optimal way of building, but I think just by fading the Trae Young where the pricing is just such a casualty. I mean, he shouldn't be $2,500 more than Jrue Holiday in this spot. And Giannis should be way more than 500 more than Trae Young, just from a pure projection standpoint and the way scoring works out on FanDuel.
I love how the chat now is a combination of Cody Bellinger updates, golf updates, and reaction to what we're talking about tonight.
I'm sticking to basketball. I'm happy to stick to basketball for you at this point. I mean, Zach McKinstry, how about that? Grand slammy. Way to go, kid. So
now,
there's
what
that.
Did you say about Trae Young's? I must have missed this. What did you say about Trae Young's age that had Rinpack jumping in, reminding you he was born in 1998?
Oh, I was being sarcastic. I was making a thing in passing where I don't know the last time, because I watched just about every single playoff basketball. I think I've probably seen every single game. I don't remember a time Trae Young even actively tried to block a shot, because he can't. He's small and tiny and has no defensive capability whatsoever. They've been able to hide him pretty well. And that's kind of my biggest gripe with Trae Young being a superstar level player. I mean, he has far and away exceeded my expectations for this postseason. I mean, I've always looked at him as a volume-based play in DFS, never thought of him as being a core piece that could take a team to an Eastern Conference Finals. I would say certain things aligned pretty about perfectly. I mean, Ben Simmons with the shooting yips, works out pretty darn well for you when the opposing point guard is 6'10". On the other side, Rip, I apologize, Eytan. I know you're.
Well, no, here's the thing.
Are you over it yet? I probably wouldn't.
No. I'm not over it. I was off for a week, so I had to vent sitting in a hospital chair live on the stream with my phone. It was really bad. I couldn't get on the local TV hits I was doing because the firewall in the hospital would prevent my Zoom. So no. I'm not over anything. Let me just correct one thing, though. Yips implies that you were able to do something first and then can no longer do it. That dude refused and still refuses to shoot. So it's just scared, I think. It's not even like Yips is giving him too much benefit here.
So I'm with like hitting 15, 18 footers. I was watching some feature on NBA.com at like 6 a.m. and they had like a montage of him at NBA Summer League, his rookie year, just knocking down 18 footers. And I was like, man, that would be useful right about now for him.
He can shoot. No, Eric, like I've seen him in practice before they put the drape down and they close it. Like we've seen him pregame. For anybody who's been down there as a fan or covering it, he can shoot. Like he is able to pull up and shoot the ball. He's scared. I've run out of excuses for him. He is scared. There is something wrong with this man that he is afraid to shoot the basketball. You don't pass up an open dunk at 6'10".
Nope, you don't.
Now I'm angry.
Okay, well, now welcome to my world, baby. Yes. Welcome to my world. Yes. Somebody just said, what about cash lineups for DraftKings? Play Giannis and the captain. How about that for a hot take?
There you go. I think that's speaking
if you're here for, just play Giannis and the captain.
Just all day. Absolutely.
All the other pieces we can talk about. We
will.
Yeah.
Now, Miles Underwood on the super chat, Collins and Hill or Capella and Lou Williams on DraftKings. And I bring that up as well because I know that there were a couple of people on the premium Slack. $29.95 a week. It's simple. Awesemo Plus. You're part of the big community here. You can be part of all the premium Slack as well across all sports we have available. Bringing up Lou, and you mentioned a couple of guys in blowout mode. I feel like Lou Williams is the perfect guy who can straddle the line of getting quality minutes in a tight game, as well as being out there in blowout mode as well, at least a little longer than guys who were coming off the bench earlier.
Yeah, so Lou Williams goes in the category of I don't know what to do with him. So he's 1,800, and if you're putting Giannis in the captain, he seems like a guy that's going to be guaranteed to see the floor, guaranteed to get over 10 minutes, guaranteed to kind of fit certain builds where it just makes sense that you're going to land on him because of the price. But the big issue that I have with Lou Williams in tournaments, if we're just going to be strictly talking about tournaments, 27% ownership on him. That's purely a product of the pricing, because if we look at any of his production by any means, he's had the one game in Philadelphia where he played 23 minutes. He just went completely bonkers. He brought them back from the dead. They were down by 20 something in that game, I believe. It was they were way dead to the wind in that spot. Came back. Lou Williams ran the show in Philadelphia, just went completely nuts. And that was the one game we've seen in this postseason where he's played over 15 minutes. Only single game where that's happened. I feel much more confident taking him and lowering him, having a little bit less of him, finding other paths to go. It's the same way I feel about Okongwu, who now it's like people play him, people don't. People play him, people don't. And it was just based on him falling into the optimal of a blowout run. And that makes sense. But again, he played 3 minutes in game one. If I just throw out game two, how much Okongwu are you going to play today? Yeah. Not 23% on DraftKings, which is what we're freaking seeing right now. So it's like one of the best ways that I think, and again, I have to imagine that Nate McMillan is going to make changes. He's going to say, okay, there's certain things that have been working for us. I got away from them, or the game just got out of hand in game two. So if I throw all of those results out the window and I find some kind of a path here to say, all right, base it more off game one than game two, you avoid recency bias, and I think you're going to have a better outcome long-term playing it that way.
All right, so let's build off that. Sick on the premium Slack, because you just lay out Lou Williams and why he's in this I don't know what to do with category. I don't know how many other players are in this specific category tonight, but the question now pits Lou against Bryn Forbes, another guy who has that potential to be out there when it matters at times, and also especially with blowout mode. But again, from cost to recency bias, I don't know where you stand between those two.
So, yeah, he played a little bit of that blowout run heading over to Popcorn Machine. You can see that there were opportunities for Bryn Forbes towards the end of that third quarter where he was chucking up a little bit more, but he's an actual meaningful part of their rotation. So they took him off the floor. He played 1 minute in the fourth quarter and was gone. So you joined everybody else there. He's in that tighter rotation that they have. I think basically looking at I don't even know where to like start going with this to start off, because it seems as though, yes, Bryn Forbes absolutely can knock down open threes. We saw him be the absolute difference maker in the Miami series. He's under 20%. I think I like that fact a little bit more. It is hard to be landing on a bunch of him without, like, you're basically going to be pivoting off of somebody that's going to project much, much better for a little bit more. You'd be dropping, like, if you had a build where you landed on like 4K left and it was PJ Tucker and you jumped down to Bryn Forbes and leave that money on the table, makes a lot of sense to me, because you're avoiding a lot of duplication, I think, by doing something like that. You're also giving up, I think, 20 plus minutes of floor time. And I know PJ Tucker is a 0.49 DraftKings points per minute player for the entire season. Absolutely horrendous. But if you're telling me at 22% that I can get PJ Tucker as opposed to playing Okongwu and Williams for 27%, who, you know, what are the minutes for Lou going to look like? You could maybe see 10, 12 minutes here. He's going to be more popular. Same thing with Okongwu. I'm going to find builds where I maybe get off of the Giannis captain just so that I can play somebody, reduce my ownership, and have PJ Tucker and Bryn Forbes and those guys who can possibly just at lower ownership be the guys who spike, and I avoid massive duplication on this slate.
Just to be clear, are you talking about working them in as far as a pivot at the captain from Giannis, or just working them in your lineups?
Utility in the lineup, in the utility. Right. I think Bryn Forbes and PJ Tucker are unnecessary. Bryn Forbes would probably be the more likely. That's probably not true. That's not probably exactly correct. Again, 30 plus minutes that PJ Tucker is going to be on the floor, barring foul trouble, barring crazy blowout in this game. We saw in game one, he got to 35 minutes. He's going to be on the floor, can get some rebounds, will uselessly just kind of be there. I think, though, Bryn Forbes could be the guy who gets in there, knocks down 2 or 3 threes. He's a little bit lower priced. I'm probably not going to get that cute by captaining either one, but I'm saying just in terms of like leaving salary, going from the popular builds where it's going to be, going towards Lou Williams, going towards Okongwu, who are just cheaper, allow more people to jam in Giannis at the captain. I will take my shots on Giannis putting 60 up as opposed to 70 or 75, where you're absolutely probably going to need him in the captain spot. But even game one, we saw Drew Holiday work out optimal because Drew went for a crazy game, allowed for you to fit Trae Young and Giannis together in the lineup and built down from there. So I'm just, for tournament's sake, going to find a way to get off of a little bit of those chalky builds with Giannis, but I'm still going to have plenty of Giannis in the captain spot.
How much Khris Middleton are you going to get to, you think, tonight? If it's in a captain spot as far as a pivot to Giannis, as we talked about, either he or Drew Holiday picking up the slack, if in fact Giannis isn't the number one guy tonight from a fantasy performer. And also just as far as the utility, and look, on the surface at 10K, this is a guy who has been very volatile. And when he is on, doesn't necessarily reward you like you'd want for that price. So that's me kind of leading the witness, saying, I don't think I would be probably underweight to the field at 44.8% owned across the board. I'm curious, though, and I always defer to you, sir, if you look at some value here, maybe because people would be straying away from Middleton for the obvious reasons.
I think if you're playing on both sides, if you're playing DraftKings and FanDuel, I think that there's a path to being able to just take the one that's going to be lower owned on each side. And it's pretty easy because I think because of the pricing, it kind of indicates which direction you can go. So Drew Holiday in the utility spot, getting a little bit more ownership on DraftKings. Yep. That's because he's 9,600 up to Khris Middleton's 10K. And then that's going to make me want to prioritize Khris Middleton for the ownership to avoid the duplications. Same thing over on FanDuel. Khris Middleton is $1,000 less over on FanDuel. If you just simply flip-flop and you go to Drew Holiday in that spot, as opposed to Khris Middleton, I know it's $1,000 more, but part of it is I'm just hoping that Drew Holiday in the star spot can be the guy that can kind of be the second highest scorer in this game. If you can limit Trae Young on the offensive side, if you can maybe pick up some defensive stats here or there. I mean, he put up 58.8 there in game one. Trae Young put up 69.9 on FanDuel in game one, and Giannis put up 70.9. So Giannis still ended up being the MVP there. and it still ended up working out. And I'm going to have him be just a massive priority. And I don't think that that's he's going to be crazy, crazy high owned on that spot, and he should be. But going to Drew Holiday for a little bit more just to get off of all of the plays because Khris Middleton's so much easier to fit for $1,000 less. So give me more Middleton on DraftKings, which might sound a little counterintuitive if I'm playing like one or two lineups. And on FanDuel, give me Drew Holiday and the star as opposed to Middleton.
So kind of looking at the last little spot there, because I think we covered a lot with the MVP where it really is just Giannis, and you're looking at maybe Holiday or Middleton, pardon me, to that extent. And before we look at Bogdan Bogdanovic, the injury, and just kind of how that factors in, is there, and maybe it is him, maybe you are going totally counter to the field here and would run somebody more in that mid-range as your captain tonight, if it's a Brook Lopez scenario, or on this side, if it's Bogey. Probably not going to be Kevin Huerter because of just how volatile and how consistent he has to be just to be on. Foul trouble, it's easy for him to be in. But are you looking at anybody to maybe go against the field here and take somebody in that mid-range and run with your captain, knowing that we also created this, I think, believable and workable narrative here that you don't need to jam Trae Young into every single lineup. So you're not really hurt if you roll with a Lopez, if you roll with somebody in the middle here, if you don't have to get, or you can't get to Trae Young.
So here comes my one hot take. If you want to take, if you're looking for it, if you came here to hear one thing, and I'm going to make a stand on it, and this could make me just look like an absolute dum-dum here at this point in time. It's nice that you're able to have. I think Bogdanovic, this is the time when we get back on Bogdanovic. I think if the Hawks are going to play well and have a shot here, they've got to have a viable number two. John Collins played a little bit over his head towards the end of that Sixers series. I do not believe that John Collins is the offensive catalyst that can exist here. But I think game two hit a lot of things that I really liked that Bogdanovic did. One, he got a little bit more aggressive once that game got out of hand because he didn't have the pressure necessarily of actually performing well. The game didn't matter in the second half. They basically were looking for anything that they could cling to that could be positive coming into it. And I think the one positive takeaway they can have is that Bogdanovic went out there. They put him in the pick and roll. He got 3 assists at the 11-minute mark, the 10-minute mark, and the 8-minute mark. He ended up knocking down some shots. He went 1 for 3, I guess, in that one stint there. But he was involved offensively. He made a 3, missed 2 others in that spot. Earlier in that second period, when they were just getting the doors blown off of them, knocked down a couple shots there, went 2 for 2 in that stint in the second quarter. I think offensively, we saw 27 minutes for him in game one. I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised if he's actually feeling better, coming off of having a little bit of the time to be able to recover here, going back into Atlanta. I got to think that this is the time. If Bogdanovic is going to pop, I want to be way overweight to him in the captain spot tonight. I think that there are certain builds that I really like that kind of require somebody in that mid-range to be able to play Giannis, Khris Middleton, Trae Young together. And I think that there's a viable way of getting those 3 together, specifically on DraftKings. Drew Holiday makes it a little too easy. $9,600, even that $400 of savings makes one specific build very easy to do. But I think going Bogdanovic and the captain and having a couple of different viable ways of mixing and matching those top studs and making that work could be very shocking, because I think there's a 35 plus point game out of Bogdanovic coming up in this series, because Trae Young is going to be hounded by Drew Holiday. And it's been brought up many times. I'm not the first person to bring that up. And we try not to factor in too much individual defense, but it's a thing. Drew Holiday is so good on both ends of the floor. And I just have this feeling that Bogdanovic has to be a guy offensively, if this game stays closer, that I want to have be in my 3-3 where I'm building with 3 Hawks and 3 Milwaukee guys. A lot of those are going to have Bogdanovic in the captain slot.
What do you need, you think, from him tonight? 30 minutes? 33 minutes?
I would like to see 30 plus, and I think that there's a path for it now that we saw 27 in game one. I think game two, recency, I think it probably hid a bigger game. I think if that game stayed closer, I think he plays 27 minutes. He was already performing pretty darn well. I think we can throw a lot of the game two stuff out the window. But one thing I do like, 3 for 6 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3, 4 assists. 4 assists is the most number of assists he's had since that injury. He played 36 minutes against Philadelphia. That would have been in game 1 before he got hurt in that spot. Because then he ended up sitting out. He played 21 minutes on the 16th. So that would have been game 5. I just think that there's a path where he's more involved. That team looks so much better when he's actually being a meaningful part of the offense rather than have it be just the Trae Young show. And if I'm going to be shorting Trae Young, I got to find another Hawk that I think can somewhat do it offensively if I'm not going to just have 5-1 onslaught Bucks. Like, I just need to find that guy, and I'm hoping that it can be Bogdanovich tonight.
Well, and it makes sense because both Capella and Collins are still one stage removed from the ball. They're not bringing it up. They're not creating offense. Especially Collins, is a product even off of a miss. Capella as well, not necessarily that central focus. It's just so much easier for McMillan to go to bogey if Trae Young has 2-3 guys on him at all times. And look, to your point, I think game 2 is going to cause a lot of people to look and get caught watching the box score, right? Get caught watching the game log. Oh, yeah, barely played. Even game 1, he was hurt. And man, look, I know we have a couple of things we're looking at from him specifically tonight, from a captain to just rostering him. So I imagine you're heavy on a utility spot for him as well. But I was looking at this and I just wanted to make sure that the books have not adjusted, because Odd Shopper had bogeys total at 9.5 tonight, which seems, you talk about recency bias. I mean, and now he's off the board.
Smash
here.
It. It's the best bet on the board. It's the best. I mean, it was the first thing I did this morning when I woke up is I took the over on just about every single Bogdanovich prop that I possibly could. I bet the over on points, 9.5. I bet the over on rebounds. I believe it was 2.5 was the number that I got there. Absolutely love going to that side of it. I went over, under, I believe it was on assists. I'm probably not going to be going that direction again. I just think he needs to be a volume-based scorer for this team to stay competitive in this series. If we're going to see a game stay closer, if we're going to see this, I mean, it's 4.5, so it's not like an extreme game script. I think most people also think the way that we are. I know that there's a couple people that go into YouTube chat and say that, they're Hawks fans, or that we've been shorting this team. We should be shorting this team compared to the Milwaukee Bucks with Khris Middleton, Drew Holiday, and frickin' Giannis Antetokounmpo. Like, there's no question about that. But what I'm saying is that we're going to find a path for them to be more competitive. If I want to have those kind of scripts, if I'm looking for a way to get different in the pro spot over on FanDuel, I mean, my highest owned pro player in that spot is Bogdanovich at 9,500.
Wow.
I think there's a path for him having a big game. I want to be early to the party here because everybody's been bitter on him. He's projected out well so many games, so many times in a row. He continues to fail. He's now at 21%. I just think if that game goes out and plays the full 27 minutes and he puts up 28, 29, we're having a different conversation about Bogdanovich on DraftKings at 6,600. I think we're having a different conversation about him at 9,500 on FanDuel. And so, with 15 minutes to go, I'm not saying restructure every one of your lineups. I'm just saying that Bogdanovich is a guy that has a ceiling. I think that he's probably getting a little bit healthier. He looked as good as what I've seen him on a floor. I don't know how to quantify that. I don't know how to give you the data for what that means for him. All I know is the production that we can expect for him when he's healthy, when he's playing mid-30s minutes that we've seen out of him, is very different than the production that we've seen from him the last 2 weeks. And so I'm going to err on the side of him possibly being able to recapture some of that form he showed at the tail end of that New York series, because he was a huge part of what they were doing. He was distributing the ball. He was able to rebound the basketball. I'm just hoping that he can be the difference maker in my lineups tonight.
Man, all of that, everything you just laid out, I'm nodding my head in full agreement. And I love how you sell it. And I hate to use that term because there are negative connotations with it, but it's true in how you present and again, I don't want to use sell and narrative because these two terms have such negative connotations associated, but how you present the game plan tonight with bogey, right? If I can use that phrase,
right?
I love it. I absolutely love it. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you an opportunity to make your money back after losing that Hickok bet. Okay.
Wait, no, really? You're kidding me.
I'm sorry.
Oh, shit.
I couldn't resist. Here's the thing though. God. Over 2.5 assists, Eric. Over 2.5 assists.
Yeah, no, I had done that earlier this morning. It was popping up on Odd Shopper as well over there. That was a good spot to go. And I thought it built the narrative of what I was trying to do. I would just not touch it. I mean, I have a quarter unit that I had on that. I have 1.5 units on the over of 9.5. I think it's one of the better spots to be going that we've seen out of a prop this entire postseason. That's also, I love when my take and my projections match up with Awesemo's projections because they're just better than mine. We have the best tools and data in the industry. We have the best minds. You look at Buzzard, you look at Alex Baker, you look at Rinpack. We have a bunch of thoroughbreds in the stable. So you just want to be following a lot of what their data is saying. 53.4% expected ROI, 82% win percentage, 82% of the time they're projecting Bogdanovic to score double-digit points here. That is good enough for me. I'm hoping he blows the doors off of that tonight.
I love it. Yeah, the X-Win is such a key tool on Odd Shopper. And again, we talk so much about it. It's just part of our DNA, not just the two of us here, but across the channel, where we're infusing. If it's player props, we talk about the line. We talk about the total a lot as far as how the books see the total and how we can play off a narrative or game plan as a result of that, especially if something seems off, like a total sitting at 233 or a total sitting at 212, those two extremes, right? So absolutely, I think anytime we can to apply that. I do have a couple of others I want to throw at you just to kind of see where you are from the individual prop standpoint. And again, I don't mind laying the 128 going. Oh, I know it's going to be juiced a little bit to the over. I don't mind that at all. No way in hell would I take under 9.5 points tonight unless the guy was hurt. But just a couple of thoughts here. We talked about Lou Williams, Bryn Forbes, a couple of guys here maybe at the bottom of lineups when it comes to a cost standpoint. Okongwu as well. So we kind of got the popular names out of the way, especially because if it's Bobby Portis at 32 or anybody below him, Lou Williams as well, even Okongwu we see pretty heavily owned for a guy like that at 1,000. Below, Solomon Hill, Pat Connaughton, even Cam Reddish we talked about in a blowout mode, and he's not even cheap at 5K, so that's probably a big deterrent in its own right. But if it's Solomon Hill, who seemed to be a big play early on, I don't know if he's still in that kind of phase of love phase, if you will. Is there anybody else kind of below that's a punt that you really do see getting to a lot in your lineups?
So I'm going to be mixing and matching a lot more because, as I said, I'm going to have some interesting captain exposures in the middle. I right now have 35% Giannis. So I'm 5% above the field in the captain spot on DK with Giannis and Antetokounmpo. I can still do that. It's just that I'm trying to get different. I'm not having as much Drew Holiday, Khris Middleton, Clint Capella, and like those kind of dudes in that lineup. So I'm able to mix and match on the bottom end. So there's nobody that I'm really hitting the brakes on entirely, except for one guy. And so, Solomon Hill isn't really getting the kind of ownership. He's 1,200, 15.5% there. I think he sees the court time, played 20 minutes in game one. I think he's got to be out there he actually looked decent defensively. Not that anybody can look good against Giannis or limit them or anything, but at least he's a little bit bigger frame dude. He can be a little bit mobile. Danilo Gallinari gets on the floor. You're not going to put him on Giannis by any means. Clint Capella can do an okay job, but it seemed like Solomon Hill was kind of getting the assignment there anytime that he was on the floor. I don't really just completely hate that. What I do not like very much is Bobby Portis. I think Bobby Portis, I've kind of hit the eject button on for the most part. We're projecting him right around 13 minutes. He's 3,200. I'm not mincing at that, but I think people are looking at the box score from the first two games. He played 15 minutes. He went absolutely rocking there. Got out of the gate super hot, 5 for 8 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3. Game 2, played 18 minutes, got a tiny bit of that blowout run towards the tail end. He kind of was the guy to solidify it. He played an extra, 3 minutes in the fourth quarter till they took him off the floor, came out the 9:25 mark, came into the game in the third quarter at the 4:28 mark. So he was definitely just kind of out there to be the guy to initiate it. He actually didn't even do much in that stint, is kind of the interesting part. So you could maybe say, if he just has the same kind of production on both sides of, 13 minutes, 15 minutes. But I just think the minutes floor is there. This is going on the road. It's just going to be a different game environment. Feels like a guy at his current ownership. If he was going to be down there at, 15, 20%, sure, he can get there in a meaningful way, point per minute, like 1.17 DraftKings points per minute is nothing to wince at. But he just never really gets the floor time for me to really want to go to him, like get over top of the field on 34%. So by default, I've trimmed him. He's at about 18% of my lineups. Feels like another good spot to stand, to just be a little bit lower on him. And then also going to talk about FanDuel as well from that same situation. He's at 8K. There's a lot of other pieces. I think Pat Connaughton makes a very, very viable. You should have more Pat Connaughton than Bobby Portis. And it comes down to court time as well. Court time, 28 minutes there in game 1. We saw him get up to 31 minutes in game 6 of that Brooklyn game. Definitely kind of came on, was a piece that kind of went in there. I know people were kind of like, oh, well, he took that last second shot in game 1. Shouldn't have. Of course he shouldn't have. Of course that it just ended up being an open shot that he took. And he's an NBA player. And what are you going to do in that spot? You pass it to a guy who's double teamed. No, you're not going to give it to Middleton in that spot. Take the shot, whatever. He's going to play 20 plus minutes more than likely in this spot. That gives me just double the minutes basically on him at reduced ownership. Give me Connaughton over Portis over there too.
All right, 2 quick things, and then a couple of props. Build an optimal lineup, or at least throw something out optimal before we get out of here. Remind you about the Awesemo Hall of Fame. We got a lot to do in 9 minutes. Darren Unger on the super chat. FD, Holiday, Portis, Bogey, or Capella, Collins, Pat Connaughton.
Capella, Collins, Pat Connaughton. Well, I mean, I like the Connaughton side. What was the first one more time?
Drew Holiday, Portis, and Bogdanovich.
I mean, I like the Bogdanovich side with Drew. If you can get off Portis, sweet. If you get him in a couple lineups, sure. Also, maybe Cam Reddish isn't actually a thing today, right? He plays one game, maybe. Like, here's the thing. If he ends up on the floor, I look like an idiot, whatever. I don't think he plays a minute. Like, I truly don't think he plays a minute of this game unless they're like, oh, we need to have a spark come off the bench. And he looked decent enough in his 17 minutes of court time. They haven't seen him play at all, but it seems very far-fetched to me that you're going to go from having a dude not play for you in any previous spot. And, you know, I know he's been out and he's been hurt and whatever else. This is not the spot where I'm going to be playing any of him whatsoever, unless I'm building a 5-1 exactly like what won the other night, where I'm predicting blowout and he ends up as like that last guy in for my lineups. He's now 8K over on FanDuel as well. That's just insanity that I would click his name before I would click PJ Tucker, Bobby Portis, Pat Connaughton, or Lou Williams in that same range.
Last guy, just for me to bring up, we have a couple more questions for you, Eric, as well, before we get out of here, some props. I'm just curious because normally when you look at 2-game or just a bigger slate, you can work Gallo in. I mean, he's definitely been able to get you productivity for the price, and Gallinari can be a guy who's not going to hurt your lineup. Tonight, 25, just under 26% owned, a little bit of a higher tag here on the showdown, clearly at 5,600. So I recognize that there is a price and that there are other people who are on him, but how much exposure do you think you'll get to Gallo tonight, knowing that he can be a pretty workable mid-cost guy in this lineup?
So I have 29% of him. I think at the range, and this is DraftKings that I'm talking about. Yep. He's only in the utility spot. I have 0 of him in the captain spot. Let me double check that so that I am not lying to the people here. I do not have any Gallinari in the captain spot. That doesn't feel like as I said, he's a guy who doesn't really scream upside to me. Sure, he can spike a shooting upside. We saw, I believe it was game 7 that he went off against Philadelphia, if I remember correctly. Let's see. Yes, 30 minutes. He ended up getting to 30 minutes there, 6 for 13, 3 for 7 from 3, 29.25 DraftKings points. That doesn't feel like it screams upside at his price where he's going to be the guy who ends up working out optimal. I think it would be a very specific outcome for it to happen. He's at 3.4% ownership. If you got him in 1 or 2 of your 20, if you're building in 20 max stuff, if you got him in a couple of those captain spots, like for that, sure, so be it. But not a guy that I'm going to be playing in anything other than the utility over on FanDuel. Not anybody that I'm going to be playing in anything other than the utility over on DraftKings either.
All right, before we hit the Awesemo Hall of Fame, and I'm looking at one prop here that jumped out, especially because of where the value is. An interesting question because of how you broke down Lou Williams and then also what you laid out with being ahead of the curve on Bogdanovich. Charles, 34.89 on the premium Slack. If you do play bogey, would you fade Lou Williams in that same lineup?
So I think Lou Williams' price allows for it to be an okay thing. So Lou Williams is cheap. That's the thing that we're looking for is he's going to go out there. You're hoping if he does get hot, he's probably going to play more than 10 minutes. He'll play 13, upwards of 25. We've seen the upside for it. I think that's a 1 in 10, 1 in 20 outcome. That's kind of what you're targeting though in Showdown is some of these extremes. I don't see a reason that Bogdanovich couldn't get hot. Lou Williams would come in. He could get hot as well. I don't think that that's like a non. Like, I don't think that they're negatively correlated in such a way because of their prices that I wouldn't have a little bit of both in lineups. I think I do have a couple where where Lou Williams shows up just so I can play Giannis, Middleton, and Drew together.
Well, it's not easy on the single game slates, but we still allow and provide the opportunity to make the Awesemo Hall of Fame. It's a very simple process, and you are part of not only a very exclusive community, but there's always a kickback here for you as well when you're part of it, including a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Here's how you do it. You just download the Awesemo profile pic, awesemo.com/avatar. Place in the top 3 of a contest with over 5K. And you start to see as Tyler will roll through some big winners here. Just tweet the wins at AwesemoHOF. You should be following all of our accounts, of course, at Awesemo_com, Awesemo NBA as well. So everything going on, but tweet it at AwesemoHOF, and then you'll win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. All you need is top 3 in a contest with over 5,000 contestants. Shouldn't be difficult tonight by any means to at least be in that type of contest. No. Winning it.
Oh, look at that.
It a little bit more.
I'm on this one again. Yeah, there's me. I had a 2K takedown on FanDuel the other day playing the game 2, it was, I believe. If that one, so I had like 5-10 entries or something. Oh, thank you, Tyler.
10 entries. Woo. 10 entries.
Show me.
Oh, I thought that was Tyler.
No, I did like the 25 max or something. I was playing primarily baseball on DK. I had like a bunch of DK baseball, and it was a complete disaster. So it was nice to have the showdown work out pretty well. I'm somebody who I've just revamped my showdown game to try to copy everything that I see top players do, what I see Buzzard and Rinpack and Baker do, like everybody, Awesemo himself. Like they're just so good at this. A lot of it is taking a stand. A lot of it is taking the ability to know that there are a range of outcomes. And when people are very secure on something like Bobby Portis getting to 20 points, then those are the times where you want to be taking stands, being able to find leverage and know that, yes, you are going to have exposure to a lot of people, but sometimes the way that you build your lineup is more important than who's in your lineup.
Kevin Huerter, I'm looking at this here.
God.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I don't trust anything about the guy. Nothing. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't roster him a lot tonight, and I always defer to you and smarter people on this site when it comes to rostering stuff. I wouldn't touch him from a betting standpoint as well. And then here I see it, I'm thinking, all right, well, the value just jumps out. Like it's plus 135 to go over 2.5 threes, which on the surface does not seem like a lot for Huerter, but foul trouble. There are other options on like I can easily see a pathway to where even the Hawks win and Kevin Huerter only drops 2, but I could not pass over the value at the very least, Eric, going over 2.5 at plus 135. I'm not placing this wager. I'm just getting your thoughts on it pre-flop before the tip.
Fine. I don't really feel any certain way. I mean, Kevin Huerter, from a DFS perspective, I have 14% of the field. Looks like it's around 19%. I think that's about where he falls into. That price is just inflated to adjust. It's been adjusted for those 2 nuclear bombs he dropped on the Sixers. And It was a different matchup. It was a different spot. I mean, Middleton's able to body him up, and you've got just stronger defensive players between Tucker and Giannis and Lopez, and everybody's so much better defensively on this team than what we saw. And I mean, the Sixers are great defensively as well, but the one spot I'd say they were weak was the Seth Curry matchup. And Seth Curry just got torched in those last 2 games because Seth Curry was the only guy who could score a bucket for the Sixers. So you had to have him on the floor. But on the other side of it, Huerter just got to do whatever he wanted to against Seth Curry, not the best, most agile defender. And a spot in the playoffs where they just kind of allowed Kevin Huerter. He was creating his own shot. He was knocking down some crazy shit. And now 37 minutes of him, sure, he's fine to play a little bit here and there. It's all going to be volume scoring. I mean, that's basically what you're looking at. He did have a double-double, I guess, in game 6. So there's that. He has some rebounding potential. But for the most part, we're going to see against Milwaukee stuff like we saw in games 1 and 2, 2 rebounds in each of those, only 1 assist in each of those, 13 points and 8 points, actual points, 13.7 DraftKings and 13.5 DraftKings points. Sure, he's a guy who has some upside. Wouldn't care if you took a couple shots on him in a captain slot for the event that he goes for 40 plus, but not somebody I'm getting to in a meaningful way on this slate.
Honestly, I'm just happy that my son was not born to watch that game live. To watch the Sixers lose at home to Kevin freaking Huerter.
Your child is the Sixers are undefeated in your child's lifetime. The Sixers are undefeated. Yeah. Is there a better feeling than that?
Yes. Tyler giving me the golf clap, the Harris English golf clap.
I hate there. You guys are the worst.
No, everything's locked. So, do you want to throw out anything optimal real quick here? I mean, Giannis is our captain without a doubt, unless you want to go full Drew Holiday, right?
Yeah, so I mean, I did the crazy person thing, and I took some shots on the Bogdanovich route.
Bogey.
So I went some bogey. I have 32% bogey in the captain slot over on DraftKings. So I have made a gigantic stand there. Of course, that can absolutely torch me, but his price has been dropped to account for his bad production. If he's as healthy as what I think he might actually be on the other side of this, again, he didn't have to do the full allotment of run. He didn't have to have a crucial fourth quarter or anything. Looked better in that third quarter than I've seen him look in a long time. I'm hoping that there's something to that.
So bogey at the captain. We're working in Giannis. We're working in one or both of Drew. I would imagine there's the option of either Middleton or Trae Young.
Mm-hmm. So I 100% Giannis. I have 100% Giannis. That was never not going to happen for me. Yeah. Right. So there's that. And then Collins, I've got mixed in quite a bit. Somebody with some upside, Capella as well as the other hawk that I can put into some of those lineups. And then for me, the guy I really want to get to on DraftKings, Khris Middleton, because he's $600 more. I need to prioritize him over Drew Holiday to avoid some of that ownership. Just because Drew's $600 less gives people a little bit more false sense of security, should I say.
What do you think, man? You're laying the 4.5, right?
I absolutely am.
Yeah.
Go Bucks.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I just don't know, like first quarter even, I don't know what's going to happen for you to totally lose that value. And we're staring there 12 minutes into the game thinking, oh, shit, why did we lay the 4.5 when we can get 3 or 4 points in game? I mean, Atlanta would have to be up by 12 or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly it. And here's the thing too, like I know that this Boggy thing could also not work out where Giannis goes for 60 and he ends up optimal because Boggy's cheaper, but I'm just hoping for that huge spike. As somebody just said, he's 1% in the captain. I absolutely love that. That makes me feel like regardless of the outcome that it was a guy that I think is undervalued.
I love this. What a way to end. JH on the stream. This is what we do in a nutshell, right, Eric? Appreciate all your insights, but you're off on this one Reddish. Like, of all things, it's the Cam Reddish. And look, if you're wrong on the Reddish, but right about everything else, guess what? Your lineups are still going to win money tonight.
I mean, I have 1 or 2 shares of Cam Reddish, and I can guarantee you they're all 5-1 bucks. Like, they're all bucks on the front end.
What is it about these games starting 3 minutes after they are supposed to? Yet during the week, I watched the Sixers and Hawks tip 15 minutes after the slated start. They're already underway right now. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. Let's go out. Let's get out of here and go watch Bogey go over 15. Let's do it. Love it. Thanks to Tyler. That's Eric Lindquist. Thank you all out there. Enjoy the game. Have a great night. We're back bright and early here. A lot of content on the Awesemo channel Monday morning. So stick with us. Have a great night.